And I'm going to introduce myself. I know everybody on here knows me, but if they're listening to the recording, sometimes I forget to introduce myself. So my name is Allison Gallagher, and I was a portrait photographer for 20 years. And I started to hire coaches because I felt stuck in my business. I just didn't like how I felt. I knew I needed help. Business coach came across my news feed. I hired her. And if you want to hear a lot of the stories, you can listen to my podcast. You get to decide. But coaching just changed my life. And I've become a general life and business coach for high achieving women. I want to help high achieving women do epic shit, be super happy while you're doing it. And then if you're a mom, you're just going to raise happier kids because that's how that works. And that's literally why I hired my first coach. It is very ironic that I'm doing a seminar on relationships because that's not why I hired my first coach. That was not even on my radar, relationships. But how you do one thing is how you do everything. And over the last 6 years, I completely transformed my relationships. And it doesn't take the other person. That's what you're going to learn today. It starts with us. It does not take, my marriage transformed, and I'm the one that got coached. I was an absolute doormat. Growing up, I didn't realize that I was allowed to set boundaries. I thought how people spoke to me was how they were allowed, and that's I was just supposed to deal with that. And today I can set very clear boundaries. I can stay calm and confident. The other person gets to decide how they want to act. And I get to decide what's right for me and my space. And I do it from a very articulate, neutral, confident way. And so I'm super excited to teach this because it really made me reflect on where I am in who I am. And instead of me being a kid and not allowing people to treat me like a doormat, I get to teach my daughter that she get how to set boundaries today, now, 12, 13 years old. So if you are struggling, if you have relationships that you're struggling with, you are in the right place. Okay. So with that being said, let me share my screen. So yes, this is, and I wish I knew how to like minimize this. Okay, so this is the last of the series. It's been so fun. You're going to get all 4 recordings. Congratulations. This is a ton of value for free. I suggest setting up the time to watching. There's so much value in there. And if you get one little thing from each one, your life will improve in some way. I promise you. So take the time and to go through. And if you have any questions about them, let me know. I love the content that's been created here. So first, we're going to talk about why we get to decide and what it means to get to decide our relationships. Okay. It really does instill in us deeper self-love, self-respect, and self-confidence. Every time we create boundaries, we instill in ourselves and in our life, it's a reflection of more self-confidence, more self-worth, more self-respect. Okay. And what's freer than living authentically? Because that's what it is. That's what setting boundaries is. It's speaking our truth. It sets us free. Protecting our emotional and psychological well-being. Okay. We get to decide who we keep in our space and what that looks like. So it increases our happiness. And we're high achieving women. We do not have time for drama, for the craziness, for whatever's out there, right? So our time and energy management matter so that we can show up fully for us and the people in our life that deserves our time, that we allow in our space with our time. So first, we're going to talk about challenging relationships. And then we're going to go into boundaries. But these first 3, we're just going to talk about challenging relationships right now. And the thought model is what we're going to go into, and that's the next slide. But what makes a relationship challenging? It's just our thoughts about that relationship. Think about the person. This is what you're going to do. This is what I want you to do. You're going to think about the person in your life that is challenging you, whoever it is. And we're going to go through examples on the next slide. What do you think when you think about them? Like I'm going to use my life as an example. And if anyone wants to drop in the chat different ideas, I would welcome that as well. But, there's someone in my life that is, I want to describe her as she sits on her high horse. She looks down on everybody. She wants me to support her business, but doesn't have time to support mine. And when I don't act a certain way, she's very pompous, right? So this is what I think when I think about her. And I'm choosing to believe that because she's married to a man that's in love with her, that loves who she is, doesn't see that at all, right? So the person is neutral, okay? Circumstance. And if you've never heard me share this is going to come up in every seminar, and some of you have been on them, so you understand what I'm talking about. And we're going to go through that thought model in the next slide, but this person is neutral. I am deciding to believe that the relationship is challenging because of she doesn't support my business, but wants me to support hers, and has all these thoughts about my business, and she casts judgment and kind of sits up high and everybody's below her. I believe that she has a drinking problem. Like I have all these thoughts about her, but the other people don't. They love her. They think she's amazing, right? So the thoughts that I have about her, they make me feel bad. And I'm making her behavior mean, right? The words that come out of her mouth, I'm making her behavior mean that she sits up on her high horse, right? That she's pompous and with all these things. The words that come out of her mouth, I tell myself a story about them, that she thinks she's above me. So, and that makes me feel terrible. And then when I show up in her space, I have to manage my mind because I don't want to show up the way I probably would have 6 years ago, and we'll go into that, right? But this tells you the role that you have in your relationship, and what you are thinking affects them. This is where you get to decide comes in. You get to decide. I mean, it is across the board about your whole life. So I hope that you're doing this activity in your mind, running it through what you think when you think about them, and that you're making a decision to think that about them. That's it. That's it. Okay. And we're going to break down separating the person from the behavior from you. So the thought model, right? The person is a circumstance. Then we have a thought about it. Then we have a feeling. The person that I'm thinking about and all the thoughts that I have about her make me feel angry. Okay. And then my action is I'm short with her. I avoid her. I don't listen to her. And then the result is I'm not showing up authentic. I feel like shit. I manipulate situations to avoid her. I gossip, right? So I have to move this to see you. So how do you feel and act when you think there's a million different types of relationships and thoughts about them, right? I throw out a few. If you have a teenager or your kid, let me put my phone down. Our kids are circumstances, okay? My teenager is difficult, or my kid is selfish, or whatever it is. Like we have on this call, we have all different types of ages, moms, not moms. So my partner, my boss, siblings, my in-laws, maybe it's a client that's giving you problems and you think they're the problem, right? So I hate having to interact with whoever it is, fill the blank. But I want you to go through this model. My partner isn't supportive. How does that make you feel? How do you behave? And what is the result, right? This is what I do with my clients, but jot it down, right? And how do you want to show up? What do you want to think about it, the challenging person? How do you want to feel? How do you want to act? You get to decide. You get to decide. Okay? It doesn't make it easy, but it is simple. Okay? And over time, when you start to show up in different ways, it becomes easier to show up in those ways in challenging relationships. And then you don't even have to think about it. So this is what we tend to do. And I feel like, especially as women, though that might just be a belief, we don't set boundaries because we worry about being bad, rude, or uncaring, right? But then we pretend to be happier and indifferent. We comply. We're not authentic, right? We comply, we pleasing, denying, but seething under the surface, okay? And then we're pointing the finger at them, lying, gossiping, cheating, right? Manipulating, shouting, yelling, blaming, shaming. Or I would completely detach. When my husband pissed me off early in marriage, I didn't talk to him for sometimes weeks in the house. And he was like, what is happening? Like, I would shut down. So what happens? We end up acting bad, rude, or uncaring and living inauthentically, right? So we're trying to avoid setting the boundary because we don't want to be rude. This is an assumption, but this is where I've come from and all the people that I've coached. You have all these thoughts about what setting boundaries looks like, but then how are we really acting? And, not living authentically. So I want to get you to a place where you feel neutral about your challenging relationships. Because when we feel neutral, when we come from a place of neutrality and not over, I know we can't just go from hate or annoyance to adoring these people, right? I mean, that's just not going to happen. We have to naturally go through neutrality first, where they just exist. Okay. You get to decide who you want to be in any relationships. Okay. We're not victims. We're not victims. We have choices. Okay, so the first thing we do is we're taking responsibility for how we think, feel, and act in our own relationships. The thoughts we're choosing to believe about them. They can't frustrate you without you participating. Okay, so think about what you're thinking and feeling to feel challenged. They get to be whoever they want to be. The power comes when you allow it, okay? I tell my daughter, they get to decide who they want to be. You get to decide if that's okay. And then you either walk away, you tell them that you don't like how they're speaking to you, right? They get to do whatever they want. Then you get to decide how you want to act, think, and feel, okay? But you get to decide what their words and actions mean. So what is true, about this person in my life that she says these words? Okay, she says these words. Have curiosity and compassion. She's had some trauma as a kid. I know she has some regret in her life. I know that she has some insecurities, right? Curiosity and compassion. Always look, and I do this with my husband all the time, and my daughter. They have good inside of them. Why are they showing up the way they're showing up? I go to curiosity and compassion first. And what is fact versus drama? Not that my client is a jerk off or my in-law is selfish. Okay, no, what are they saying? What are the words that are coming out of their mouth? That is the circumstance. Not that they're selfish. No, that's a judgment. Okay, same with, if I think about my daughter, if I would think that my daughter is selfish, no, she is asking for something. That's it. She's asking for something. I get to decide what I'm making it mean. This is where your power is, and this is where you'll transform your relationships. I promise you, and there is so much peace in this journey and quieter headspace. I don't spend my time in drama about people I can't control. It is so powerful. You'll get so much of your life back. So what do you want to say? So I asked this on the other slide, but now I want to return this. What do you want to think about a challenging person? How do you want to feel and how do you want to act? And practice it when you're in their space. Practice it. And then give yourself grace when you come out the side of your neck, right? Because I don't know where you are in your relationships, but if you're coming out the side of your neck and every time you're with this person, give yourself grace as you grow and move towards doing this work. Because I came out the side of my neck this morning to my husband. Like, what are you doing? I need to get ready for my seminar. Why are you here? Right? And we're human beings. We're human beings. But I immediately, I'm like, I'm sorry, babe, you know? So boundary setting is it comes from love and create and trust and honesty. When someone sets a boundary with me, man, I have such deep respect for them because I know they're living authentically and I could trust every word that comes out of their mouth. We tend to become resentful and blame others for our lack of boundaries. When we don't speak up, when someone keeps walking into our house and we don't speak up, well, how do they know that that's not okay? How do they know it's not a good time? Right? You have to set the boundary. We become resentful because they're constantly walking into our house. No, we're resenting ourselves for not speaking up. They're not to control other people. Okay. It is managing yourself, your own actions, your space, speaking your truth about what you'll stand for in your environment and what you will expose yourself for. Our truth is not for them. It is for us. Right. So we set a clear, consistent boundary and then clear, consistent consequence. But then we come from that as a neutral place when we offer the consequence. Okay. So I wrote down some examples that I can think of. But when we do this, the other person gets to freak out. They get to do all the things. They get to do whatever they want to do. But that doesn't mean anything has gone wrong. That doesn't mean you said the wrong thing. That doesn't mean you're bad. No, they get to do. I remember setting a boundary with my father. I had been in recovery for many years and I just really started to work on myself. And I decided that the way my father was talking to me was not okay. He was gossiping about my in-laws. And I wasn't having it in my environment. I'm like, you can talk about them behind my back, but please don't. He came at me. He couldn't handle it. He came at me where I was like, holy crap, he is so uncomfortable with being told. I mean, I'm sure by his daughter, right? But I was 27 years old. I'm like, listen, you can speak about my in-laws, but just not in my space. Talk about them in another room. And recovery really helped me with the courage that I was worthy of doing that. And I realized that I didn't like it. He got to freak out and all the things. I stay very calm. So if your friend is always late, you can just, I love you. I love you so much. And I love going to lunch with you. I love spending time with you. But I have a schedule and I have a busy life as well. So if you're more than 15 minutes late for lunch, I'm going to leave. And it is what it is. It's okay. So just know, instead of sitting there stewing that this person is late, this person might always be late. It's not about you. This is about their time management. But you get to decide what's okay in your environment. And you don't have to come from a place of F you. When I set a boundary, I'm like, listen, I love you so much. And I'm doing this out of love for me and you and our relationship. X, Y, and Z is what's going to happen, Or if my daughter speaks to me disrespectfully, I don't like how you're speaking to me. So let's take a break and let's regroup and have this conversation when you're calmer. I do this with my husband. Or if you're not going to berate me, I'm going to hang up on you. I'm going to hang up if you're going to speak to me this way. And let's regroup because I want to have this conversation because I love you dearly. But I'm not going to be spoken to this way. Like, it can be simple. But then if they do start to berate you, you have to actually follow through with the consequence because that's where the boundary setting happens. You can't just, this is what's going to happen and then not deliver that. That's going to confuse the other person and they're going to think, oh, I can berate them. I can, if you're going to sit for 30 minutes waiting for your friend at lunch, they're going to think it's not a big deal. And then you're going to resent them. In 15 minutes, you leave. And it's nobody's fault. It's a neutral circumstance. This is my boundary. This is what I asked for in my life, and my time is important. I know you have a busy life. I love you dearly, right? Curiosity and compassion. And then you get up and leave. And then they get to freak out, not call, yell at you, or whatever could happen. But that doesn't mean you did something wrong. It doesn't mean you're selfish. It doesn't mean anything other than you set a boundary and you love them regardless. Okay? That's why it's not about them. It's about you and your needs and speaking them clearly. And when you do this work, I hope you hear how it instills more self-confidence. It instills more self-worth. Because as women, we're always battling, a lot of us, with doing something wrong, right? I go back to the other slide. We worry about being unkind. Just because someone freaks out doesn't mean we did anything unkind. We have family members that fight, and my husband has said to them, if you're going to behave like that in this house, you are leaving. You are leaving. And they behave, right? Or if you're going to behave a certain way, we might be at a neutral home for a party, and another family starts to fight and argue. We are leaving. We are not going to be involved in this situation. We're taking our daughter and we are going home. We do not engage, even if it's not about us. We won't be around it. And it means nothing other than those are boundaries as our family. To protect our family, those are our needs. We get to decide. We're not going to sit there and wait out the fight. We leave. Someone said a few things. Okay, there's a lot there, so maybe we can look into that. Because relationships are complicated. They are. So I hope that this is helping. Okay. But you get to decide what your boundary is, and it may come to you clearly, and you may be unsure. And this is what I help my clients with, figuring out what the boundaries are. Because sometimes it's, when you live with the person, it can be hard. Family members, interacting with family members, it can be hard. So sometimes boundaries are going to change depending on the relationship and how that's evolving, right? And so you have to figure it out as you go, what feels good and what doesn't. But I don't want to come out the side of my neck to someone, so I set the boundary. And it helps me stay calm and confident and clear about what I will tolerate and what I won't. Okay, so this is a clear definition, what they are and what they aren't, okay? We're not trying to manipulate someone. They get to decide if they want to be late to lunch. They get to decide if they want to berate me. I'm not expecting them, I spelled that wrong. I'm not expecting them to change. They get to decide if they want to change. I'm not trying to punish anyone. I'm not coming from that place, okay? No more passive aggressive behavior, manipulation, or pushing them out of my life. I have to say that one thing that my coach said to me was, challenging relationships. She said, I challenge you not to just push them out of your life. I challenge you to grow to be the person that can accept all types of personalities in your life. Use it as a space to grow and not just push them out. But you get to decide, okay, if there's abuse involved and the tolerance and all those things, okay? But the relationships I have today, some of them are challenging. I want to use them as a space to be more compassionate, to be more of who I want to be more authentic, to speak my truth in a way that I know is probably not going to come off well, right? But I also, when I set a boundary, it gives especially another woman the confidence that they can set a boundary with me and with other people. So there are clear guidelines with consequences that you get to decide, okay? They don't get to tell you, well, what if I'm 20 minutes late? Right? Or what if I use this word in the conversation and I call you this word? No, you get to decide. No, it's 15 minutes. This is what I'm tolerating. Consistency. Okay, you can't let them overstep the boundary and then place the boundary, and then overstep the boundary and then place the boundary, because that's confusing. It's confusing to them, and then you get resentful. They are self-focused, okay? So if you have someone keep it coming into your house, you tell them, I'm going to lock the door, and then you call me or you ring the doorbell, okay? And then I'll let you know if it's a good time, okay? Keeps people from violating your important spaces. And the more I love myself, the more my spaces are important from a neutral place. This is where the truth is told. And there's a deeper sense of intimacy in that boundary. Okay? So when not to set a boundary, when you are angry, resentful, when you want to blame, I want you to look at that. Test yourself before you set a boundary. You want to come from a peaceful place, neutral place, direct, calm, no screaming, yelling. And if you have to come from that place, take a break. Okay? Take a break. Because what's going to come out of your mouth is very different when you're feeling neutral about someone, because our thoughts create our feelings, right? So if we're angry, what's going to come out of our mouth is very different than we're feeling neutral, confident, calm, coming from a place of self-love. Okay? We want you to feel peaceful, connected, grounded when you speak your truth, because the words are going to be very different that come out of your mouth. Because setting boundaries can be hard. And if you're coming from a place that is manipulative, shaming, blaming, angry, they're not going to be clear, and it's going to make the process harder. Okay? So, challenging relationships and hard conversations. And I love this. It creates a beautiful opportunity to flex self-confidence and grow your intimacy. When I say flex self-confidence, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that practicing self-confidence. Show yourself the confidence that you do have. Okay, so I had a hard conversation with my husband. We had a situation in January. I'm going to talk about something that happened with me. Disagreements are caused by each person having a different story about what happened. It is very neutral. I have a story. My husband had a story. And what are stories? They're thoughts. And they are just sentences in your own brain that you're choosing to believe. The first thing that I've done, and that's why to the right here, relationships can change without changing the other person. I know relationship coaches that don't even coach the spouse, and the marriage completely transforms. And that's what happened with me through business and life coaching. The only thing you really need to change is your own brain and what you are making things mean. So give up the need to be right. And I was just talking to my husband about this yesterday. We were walking the dog, and I'm like going through this, studying this. And we have literally given up the need. I gave up the need to be right. And I just started to listen to how he saw things. And that comes from curiosity and compassion, because my husband has good inside of him. I know he loves me. So let me listen to why he got angry. Let me dig deeper. And then I can start to ask questions, curiosity and compassion. So what I love this. I heard a coach say this. Give up the need to be right, and then you've removed the need for defense, and then you've removed the need for offense. It's just a conversation. I stop and listen. Put yourself in their shoes. Focus on facts. Facts are neutral. Facts are neutral. And you have to come at it in a way that there is vulnerability. That's why you have to let go of the ego. Okay? And then we brainstorm solutions. So I'm going to tell a quick story about. So my husband can, when he gets really angry, his pattern is he can be condescending. He can say things condescending to me. I say it can be shaming, okay? And I was shamed as a little girl, and my husband can say very derogatory things to me, but I have to say, I feel the shame. I decide and choose to feel shame, which I've recognized today. My husband just says things. I get to decide what they mean. Okay. And I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to try to keep this brief, but this was a hard conversation. So, and it is life, it is marriage, it is relationships, it is just everyday life. My mom had bought us tickets to go see a Flyers game. And it happened to be on the same day that I am on the Main Street Board, which is a very important board. I'm a board member on the Hamilton Main Street Board, and our retreat was the same day. And our retreat is 3 hours and it's once a year. My mom did not know this. She bought the tickets. The date had moved for the retreat. Well, I had to go to this retreat. I told him I'd be there for a certain amount of time. I told my husband I'd be there for a certain amount of time, and then I would leave. Well, I had to give a presentation. They moved my presentation to make sure I was on time. And well, I was about 6 minutes late, 7 minutes late, or maybe up to 10 minutes late to us leaving for the Flyers game. This was my daughter's first Flyers game Christmas present. My husband was texting me, I'm leaving in 5 minutes. This is ridiculous. Berating me in texts. What the F, all the things. We get into the car, he's freaking out. And he's telling me that I put work in front of Julia. Now, Julia's in the back seat. You put work in front of Julia, and that created shame in me for the mother that I am. And I sat there and I'm like, we're on our way to the Flyers game, and I don't even want to be in this car with him. And I decided, and I said to him, this is a circumstance. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. This was a circumstance, and I did my best in this circumstance, and I stayed calm. And then he gets to decide how he wants to speak, right? But my daughter's in the car. So I stayed very neutral because I knew where I could be headed. I knew that I would freak out, and I didn't want to lose myself. I wanted to manage my mind. So when we got there, I said to Julia, you are more important than anything, but sometimes there's circumstances where things come up, and I did my best to get here, and she was fine. And my husband never apologized to me. He was so angry. And I'm like, what made him be this angry? So I texted him 2 days later and I said, we have to have a conversation about this. And he didn't want to. And I said to him, I don't want to fight. I just want to have a conversation about why this happened and what made you so angry. And he's like, because your decisions. Well, we sat down Friday in a neutral way when Julia was not here, and we had a conversation. His story was, I'm selfish and I put work in front of Julia. But and I stayed neutral and just asked him questions. And I know my husband well enough that it got to the bottom of, he was feeling extra stressful at work. And what happened that Saturday threw him over the edge. He does not believe that I put work in front of her. He does not believe that I didn't want to go to the Flyers game or whatever stories he had. Okay. And I said to him, and I would say to him, if we're not going to speak about this, or I'm not going to get spoken to about this in this way, we will go to therapy together if this happens. You will not speak to me this way in front of our daughter. This is not okay, right? Because it is hard. He gets to speak to me however he wants. I get to decide if it's okay, but it's a whole other level when it's in front of my daughter, because she's learning what that looks like, partnerships. She's learning how man or woman talk to each other. And I'm not okay with that. I've said to him, when he did shame me at times, I said to him, I love you, but I will leave. I will leave because what she sees is top priority to me. I'm doing everything I can to create this beautiful human being, and how you speak to me could destroy that. And I'm not okay with that. And I meant it, So hard conversations, and we sat and we stayed calm and I listened from a neutral place, coming from a place of my husband loves me deeply. And so let me listen to his story from a neutral place. And then we talk about solutions. We talk about solutions, whatever the solutions look like. And my husband, I know he has gotten so much better. It is so rare that those things happen, very rare, barely annually, but they happen. And I have to remind him, right? So the hard conversation is practice. Over time, because I would tell my husband, he would freak out, yell and scream, and I would just walk away. I would not engage. I stopped engaging. I would say to him, and he would just be angry at trying to put a fan in the ceiling. And he's screaming and yelling, screaming at me. And I just walk away. If I'm helping him, I stop helping him and I walk away. This was years ago, but I will walk away. I'm not going to be treated this way, especially when I'm helping you. You get to freak out and scream and do all the things. I am leaving. I am leaving. And over time, he calmed down. Over time, he saw that it was nonsense. It was worthless energy. So over time, when you create those changes and you do it from a calm place, it really is organic and it really, the relationship really changes. And when my husband saw that I could be vulnerable, I can come from a place of no ego, that I can listen to the things that have come out of my mouth and how I hurt him. When I could hear that and sit there and say, okay, I want to do better, that created a space for him to want to do the same. So, so just like I hired a coach to help me with business, my clients are the same. Okay. She hired me for business. She's a busy mom, busy wife, a mom. She homeschools her kids. She runs a very busy travel agency. Her relationships have changed. Her communication with her daughter, her communication with her husband, when he comes home from work and he's angry and she can be present for him and not make it about her. You start to change the stories you tell yourself. So it happened for me, and it happened. How we do one thing is how we do everything. And that's why, especially when someone is hired for business, you start to become more self-confident, you start to have your own back, and then you want to set boundaries. And then you could clearly see what your boundaries are. So I just want to offer, if you're struggling with your relationships or with anything else, we talk about setting boundaries, more confidence, getting unstuck, creating more happiness, more fulfillment, more accountability. If you show up and you want to do something, but you show up and you don't do it and you need help with accountability, my clients check in with me. We do weekly calls and we would check in with what did you get done? What do you want to get done? Time management, which is my very first seminar, which is huge. We can create time. And if you are struggling with that, anything that's on this list or anything that you need as a high achieving woman, we would work together for 3 months and it's $1,500. I want you to think about 3 months ago where you were, or 3 months from now, right? 3 months from now, you could have progress or be right where you are. And what could you accomplish in 3 months? And if this is something that you want help with, if you want to get on the rocket ship, is what my coach would say to me, because I help my clients move really fast and this is the QR code to schedule a free call. We would talk about where you are, where you want to be, what you're struggling with, or what may be even possible for you. You may not even know what's possible for you, but you know that you are meant for more. We would have a free call where we would go over that and we would make a plan and on that free call, you're going to know maybe what's going wrong, what you're struggling with, why you're stuck, and you're going to know the steps to take to get there. You don't even have to decide to work with me on that call, but you're going to know that knowledge just from that call and what we go over. I talked to you about how I would bridge your gap, where you are and where you want to be, and I would tell you the steps to take to get there. And then if you work with me, you're going to get there faster. If you feel like we're the right fit, we can do that. And if not, you can take those steps and go on your merry way. But this is what it looks like to work with me. And if you have any questions, let me know. Does anyone have questions? So I'm reading this, toxic, if she has a close toxic relationship. I mean, toxic is a judgment, right? So we would have to get down to what toxic means and why it's toxic and the thoughts that are creating the toxicity, and then whether we want to continue to deal with people in their life. And I just come from a neutral place. Like there's people that I don't, there's some of my husband's friends. Sometimes I'm a present, sometimes I'm not. It depends on the situation. And I don't care what they think. I don't care what others think, whether I'm there or not. And my husband gets triggered. My husband's like, well, you're not going to be there. I said, no, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to be there this time. Maybe I'll be there next time. But I'm going to take care of me today. And my husband has had to adjust with me not always being with some of his friends that are wild. And that feels great for me. And my husband, I have set clear boundaries with him about who I'm going to spend my time with and when I'm going to spend my time with them. And for today, he adapts. And there's times where he's like, babe, please. He especially when it comes to sometimes his family, this is important to me. This is really important to me that you're there. And then I go. So, his mom was going through cancer. And so I was more present at family gatherings, parties. Sometimes those places I pick and choose where my energy goes, So, but I get to decide. I could have said, no, I'm not going. But for him, and what was going on in his family with his mom, okay, I'll go. Right. So, oh, good. Okay. So, this is what I do with my clients. Everyone on this call probably knows this, but if you're listening to the recording, where do you want to be in 3 months? That's how I work with my clients. Think about 3 months ago and where you are now and where you want to be in 3 months. Some of my clients I work with for 6 months, whether it's relationships, whether it's the time management, making more money, whatever it is. Think about where you want to be in 3 months, and I would help you get there. And it's 3 months or 12 calls for $1,500. So I enjoy every seminar that I do. This was probably my favorite because I think setting boundaries will change your life. When you can set boundaries clearly, you're going to run a tighter business. Think about, I have clients that can't set policies or struggling with employees, or allowing they're resentful towards clients, or they don't want to show up and sell. Boundaries are a part of all of that, and so this is really, and it's really the relationship with yourself. Relationships start with the relationship with yourself, which is why the last seminar, I did them the way I did them. Time, money, but then it was your relationship with yourself and then relationships with everybody else. Deciding your own happiness comes from reflection of who you are and how you feel about you, right? The more I started to love myself, the more I realized I have a voice and my time matters and my energy matters. And I was able to be clear and come from love. I love you dearly. I tell my husband, babe, I love you more than anything in this world. I told him, I said, I'd rather stick bamboo shoots up my fingernails than fight with you. That is the truth. I don't want to fight with my husband. I'm in love with him. But this is a conversation we got to have. That's it. And we can do it without screaming at each other. So let's prove to ourselves that we can, and over time, my husband, um, he's changed. And I'm so grateful. I'm married 21 years and I'm in love with my husband. Right? But I came out the side of my neck this morning because he was in the bathroom when I needed to get ready. And he should have left for work at that point. Right? And so I'm like, I'm sorry, babe. I love you. So all right. Anybody want to share anything? Any aha moments? Any nods? Any thumbs up? Are you think any wins? Are you having challenging relationships that you want to think differently of? Um, and if you need help, I can help you with this. And I'm telling you, with Danny, by the third call, her life was changing. She saw her life completely different within 3 hours of coaching. So I'm happy to help. And you're going to get these recordings. And that's it. How we feeling, ladies?
This was great, Allison. I have just, I'm a caregiver for my mother, and my siblings live with her, and I do everything. So that's, I can apply a lot of this to them.
Yes. Because you're deciding to take care of mom. They're deciding their actions, right? Whether we like them or not. And
Yeah.
that's really challenging. And how do you want to show up? What's going to give you the most peace? Like I always want to show up my feelings peace. That's the priority for me is peace, right? Not to be right. Peace. And so when I come from I want to feel peace, what's the thought do I have to think about them? Right? And that's when I would go to because I was the only one that would visit my grandmother in a nursing home. My grandmother was a rock star grandmother, and I was the only one. My dad's gone, and I was the only one out of all the cousins, and we were close. I was the only one that would go visit her. And I could get resentful. I was so resentful. I'm like, you are so selfish. How can you deny grandmom at this time? Right. But what are those thoughts? They make me angry to my own sister. Instead, I was like, I am getting this special time with my grandmom that no one's ever going to take from me with my daughter. I'm making my grandmother happy. I am growing and making sure I put that on my calendar, which is very difficult to go there every Sunday. But I love who I'm being. I love the choices that I'm making. And everyone else can do their thing. That's what brought me peace. And it wasn't all the time. There were times where the resentment crept up, especially if you got to deal with them in a house. Right? But curiosity and compassion. There can be no ego where there's curiosity and compassion.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I go to curiosity and compassion. I try to with everybody, you know? And that's what was taught to me in coaching. Was curiosity and compassion. And it was and with ourselves. Oh, I came out the side of my neck again. I freaked out on my husband, right? Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I did the thing again. Give yourself grace for taking a step back and not showing up the way you want to show up. You know, as we grow and move towards who we want to be, we're going to have setbacks. We have to have our own back and just love ourselves through that process. Okay.